This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Ben Settle, compulsively punchable.
He's the kind of guy who you'd probably just punch on the arm really hard if you ever met him.
Worshipped by feminists.
He pokes fun at feminism and women, just joking around, his whole sandwich making thing.
Mildly inspiring.
Yes, I recommend the Ben Settle Show, and anybody who isn't on it, that's their own loss.
Somewhat authentic.
Ben is a very distinct personality. There's no fluff. I can't stand fluff.
Syrupy sweet.
Tells it like it is, and sometimes may not be the most polite manner, shall we say.
Kind of useful.
So I have spent tens of thousands of dollars on coaching and masterminds, and I've learned more from Ben Settle's podcast than from any of that.
Semi-intelligent.
Ben sounds like a crazy guy at times, but he's one of the smartest individuals in marketing I've ever met.
Mostly forgettable.
He's always in the forefront of my mind.
The BenSettle.com podcast begins now.
This is Ben Settle, the BenSettle.com podcast. And Jonathan, before I jump into the meat of this one, I want to address something that's come up a few times. The first time it came up was when I first got the intro, when your audio guy created the intro for me, the new intro.
Yeah.
I, of course, took it to Facebook and I said, hey, check out my new intro, right? Because I wanted to see what the reaction was to it. Because let's face it, it's a little bit, different, I hope, than what most people do out there. I don't really listen to other podcasts, so I couldn't tell you how different it is or not. But I like to gauge the reaction and see if it gets anybody. I want to disturb people sometimes. Let me just put it out there. Anyway, so this one guy, I don't know. I'm sure I'm gonna butcher his name, but not on purpose. It's never on purpose. His name is Libor, Libor, Bednarik said, great, but why does it have to be so long? Imagine your emails would start with a long intro like that. You would go mental after a while. The same for the podcast. I think better to jump in, kill everyone, and get out. Or am I wrong? Of course, I answered. He's wrong. He's wrong. But at the same, because this intro, even though it's actually shorter than the old Ben Settle show intro by probably almost 10 seconds. I get it. I mean, I get why people who are armchair podcasters who don't actually, I don't know, maybe he does his own podcast. I don't know. But a lot of people have opinions on these things, but they don't understand the principles behind why these things are done. Somebody might listen to our intro, Jonathan, and think, oh, Ben's just being an egomaniac or something, even though it's kind of self-deprecating in parts. I mean, let's face it, that's the whole point. Contrasting ideas and all that. That's what gets attention. It's what gets people. It's just hard psychologically for people to ignore things that are contrasting. But that intro is not for regular listeners. Okay, that intro is for the new listener. That is basically the headline for, or you could say an email selling people on why they should listen. It builds credibility. I mean, the whole thing is credibility and entertainment. Coming in when you listen to my show, it's not. I'm not going to. I'm hoping you get this idea that I'm different than the other ones out there. That's what I wanted to happen. So when I've got worship by feminists. Obviously, I'm not, or the part where April Dykman put in about the great testimonial she gave me about how she's learned more from my free podcast than $10,000 mastermind she's attended.
Amen.
Marty McDonald's on there, right? He's Ben sounds like a crazy guy, but he's one of the smartest guys in marketing he's ever met. That stuff is in there to build up my credibility and let you know that I'm not just some boring, hopefully not some boring, cough medicine label sounding copywriter or something, just writes boring stuff and talks about boring stuff. So that intro is for the new listener. It is not for people who listen I expect my audience, Jonathan, okay, because I expect my audience to be a little more intelligent than the average person out there, understands that you can, with today's technology, you can simply take the mouse, if you're on a computer, and just kind of fast forward a minute in, with one click. And, if you don't want to listen to it. To me, it's a no-brainer, but whatever. What are you going to do?
Dude, what about every other TV show, every other show? They have an intro that just sets you up to go into the show in the right mindset. That's just a normal part of packaging.
I agree. And some of them really are a minute long or longer. So, it is what it is. But if you look at the actual runtime on it, I think it's under a minute when the music actually stops. I could be wrong about that, but it's not very long. Anyway, this has nothing to do with the rest of the show. it's just something I wanted to get out there. And what kind of, I'm going to segue. I'm going to do one of my famous segues. I'm going to take something that seems unrelated and segue it into the next thing. So I mentioned that my audience is much more intelligent than the average person. I really believe that, Jonathan. I'm not just stroking their egos or anything. I've talked to many people in my audience, and I know. Okay, we are not average in the BenSettle.com podcast world. We're just not. for better or worse. Some people may disagree with that, and some people may be wrong. Speaking of intelligent people, so there's one of my fans, and she's very, very into the stuff I teach and all that, and she applies the things I teach and all that. Her name is Candace Parsons, and she wrote me this long email a little while ago, and I've actually used this to help promote this podcast, talking about how she was listening to all of the old Ben Settle show podcasts, because we have them all archived and everything, and she likes to listen to them while she's cooking dinner and all that, and her son is now like listening to my show intently. In fact, her son shushes her when she tries to talk over me, Jonathan.
Smart kid.
Now, this is a 10-year-old kid, okay, or at least at the time that this is going on, a 10-year-old child. Much more intelligent than I was at 10 years old, I can tell you that much. And to prove it, okay, because I can say this all day long, but to prove it, what Candace did, which I thought was pretty cool, is she got her son talking about, or she heard her son talking about our show here, and she kind of secretly recorded what he said. And, you know, he wasn't too amused by that. You can tell by the end of it, but, you know, she's going to do what she's going to do. She's the mother, okay? He's the child, he's the lad, and he's just going to have to learn to deal with disappointment. That's another lesson. But we're going to listen to this clip now, and before I continue, because it leads into the rest of the show. So, Mr. Audio Guy, hit it.
Yeah, because like on one of the first videos, I've listened to Ben Settle. Like, I think he said, you know, when people don't like your product or they don't like your email or anything, then don't worry about it. Don't try and chase that person down and try and get them, because you're not going to want them to get your stuff anyway because they're not interested. So yeah. I like that he's real. Like, he's real and to the point. Like, he doesn't just say random stuff that doesn't really matter. He's really straight and to the point, and he says a lot of really nice tips. Like, the tips are useful. They're not just weird stuff that random people say.
Okay, so sometimes if he says things that are maybe not for kids, how do you go with that?
No, I just let it slide off my shoulders and I pretend that I don't listen to it.
Really? Is that what you do? Okay, cool.
But I still get the concept, because, you know, if he's saying it in a bad way, I still get the concept of what he's saying, you know? Yeah, so yeah.
Okay, cool.
And with Josiah, I also use a lot of his tips with my friendship, so it's not all for marketing, it's also for friendships and stuff, because I can use all his tips.
That's awesome, Wes.
Are you going to send it to him? Really? Why?
All right.
Okay, so you guys heard it. Now, this was not scripted. I've never met this kid. I've never even met the mother. I've other than just talking or whatever on Facebook or through email. So this was not something that he was put up to. It's just that was off the cuff from the heart. And yeah, Jonathan, you know, this kid he sounds more intelligent than everyone in the podcast factory. I don't know.
I got to sign this kid.
Yeah, I mean, I think he needs his own podcast. You get that kid on the podcast factory. That would be interesting. But part of that email that Candace sent me about the kid originally was how he uses the concepts and the principles that I teach on this show to deal with his friendships and to put some of his friends in their place. Because, you know, there's low-class jackass people everywhere, and it's no different on the playground. It certainly wasn't when I was growing up. So I thought it would be interesting to give people some advice on this, because as I told Candace, okay, you know, if the child, the lad, whatever you want to call him, if he's hanging out with the wrong people, that can actually negatively affect him. And this goes for all of us. And I use the biblical analogy of a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Okay. And what that meant is if leaven is something that if you put it in, from what I understand, at least, Jonathan, when you make bread and you put the leaven in there, if you just one drop of leaven or one little thing of leaven can actually spread to the whole loaf of bread. You know, and maybe not in a good way. And so if you let one bad apple, for example, into your business, that can actually screw up morale and really cause chaos in your business. If you let one bad customer in your business, it can actually cause chaos for you and some of your other customers. Think of this. You let some low-class jackass bum customer into buying your product or whatever, and they're going to do their thing and be a low-class jackass, and they're going to go out there and put you in all the review sites and say how bad you are and all that. Now you got to deal with that. By the way, Jonathan, another side trip. I just thought of something before I get into this, but I got to talk about this. So I noticed somebody who I have trained, Okay. And I'm not gonna go any farther than that. I'm gonna say somebody who I personally trained in my ways ended up on the ripoff report. Now you know what the ripoff report is, right?
I saw the post.
Okay. It's a completely irrelevant site. I mean, nobody really like anybody who would actually base their decision on the ripoff report is not customers of any of ours. So it's not like a big deal. But I was pissed because, first of all, I'm loyal to this person. Like, I trained this person. I believe in this person, and I don't want this person having a dumb, like, stupid review like this person got. It wasn't right. It wasn't even true. In fact, a lot of the facts in it were just idiotic. And so I did a rebuttal on it. And my rebuttal was not oh, you're wrong, take this down, because it's just an extortionist. So everybody knows this. I mean, it's not a big deal. You have to pay a bunch of money to get your name off there, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? They're going to do what they're going to do. They get away with it, whatever. I was mad because why don't I have a rip-off report page, Jonathan? Where's my page at? I mean, I'm the one that trained this person. If this person is a fraud, why don't I have one? I was talking like I would love to be on that site because I would use that. I would use that in so many daily emails. Proudly on the rip-off report. If you're going to be cast as a villain, you might as well play the part well. So this person I trained, I don't, at the time of this recording, I don't talk to anymore and all that. We had our own little falling out, but I'm still loyal to that person professionally. And I will just say this, if I was this person, if they're listening, use it to your advantage. It's an asset that's just been handed to you, and you can mock the hell out of the rip-off report if you want in your daily emails.
As seen as.
Put it on your website. Absolutely. Michael Savage, my favorite talk radio show host, he's been banned in Britain, Jonathan. Do you think he did a whole book called Banned in Britain. I mean, you talk about making the skeleton dance. This is an opportunity when you get on a site like one of these psychopath sites that, like, I believe the people who follow these sites are in many cases just literally psychopaths. You see like the comments people make and all that, like they'll take personal shots at people, personal shots at their family, all this stuff that's just, it's so bum ass, low class jackass. I'm not saying that the people who run that site are bad people or not. I don't know them. I'm just saying these review type of sites I don't like any of them. And so it is. I don't want to be, I gotta be careful, Jonathan. They'll like try to sue me for whatever slander. I'm not slandering them. They're a great site. Okay. Jonathan, they're a great site. Everybody should go check it out. Run by great people. Okay. I'm officially saying that. But if I was on there and I was mad that I was not on there because I was the one that trained this person, I don't know. It kind of bothered me. Like, where's my page? Jonathan, where's your page? Do you ever check to see if your name's on there? Dude, you might be surprised.
Nobody knows who I am, so I'm cool.
Yeah, we're going to change that, podcast mogul. So anyway, back to the matter at hand. I don't think Carson's son will ever, or Candace's son, Carson.
New name.
It's Candace Parsons. So I just parsed her name together there, so to speak. I don't know if Candace's son will ever end up on a site like that, but if you do, and I know he's listening to this, use it to your advantage. When people sit there and try to like call you names or they make up lies about you, just agree and amplify. All right, just agree with it and actually then just amplify it. And so it sounds silly to everyone who listens to it. Now, back to the matter at hand. I kind of replied back to Candace and I was like, okay, he's hanging out with some little low-class jackass is what it sounded like to me at least. And I'm not going to use names or anything. But you have to remember, and I believe this is true. I do believe this concept, Jonathan, that you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I believe there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, if you're hanging out with low-class jackass people, you're going to become low-class jackass by default. If you're hanging out with champions at something, you're going to become a champion at something. Who you spend your time with is very important, Jonathan, which is why I spend most of my time with myself. Okay? Because I've come to the conclusion that the only way I can talk to someone smarter than me is to pray. And so it is. But what can you do? What kind of people should you be hanging out with? This is the question. And not just for Candace's son here, but for anyone, like all of us. Well, here's some things that some conclusions I've come to, Jonathan, and I would love to hear your thoughts on these as I go through them.
Okay.
First of all, I think you should hang out with people who are better than you. Now, when I say better, this doesn't mean in every
for you.
Well, this is why I'm telling you, the only person I hang out with is my alter ego El Bembo. That's it. Okay, but my dog is better than me too. People better than you, and here's what I mean by that. It doesn't mean better than you, like like you should put them on a pedestal or anything like that. What I'm saying is everybody's probably better than you at something, and you want to. If that thing is that you want to get better at, that's the person you should hang with. So if you play golf and you play with someone who's worse than you, you're not going to get any better at golf. You'll probably even get worse. In fact, chances are you'll pick up on their bad habits and all that, and you're going to have a worse game. On the other hand, if you hang out with like someone who's really good at golf, and can shoot like a 70 and all that, you're going to get better by default just playing golf with that person. It doesn't mean you're going to become as good as them or anything like that, but you are going to get better just by playing with them and being if you play with, like, for example, we'll say Tiger Woods, because everybody's familiar with him, even though his game has suffered over the last several years. He's still really good, though, compared to the average golfer. You're going to get better. And you may even learn how to pick up porn stars, too, from what I understand. But, that's a whole other thing. Another thing you should be doing. Don't give away your power when you do hang out with people. So let's say you find someone better than you to hang out with, Jonathan. Don't give away your power. This is something I had a discussion with Brian Kurtz about actually a couple years ago when we were at Ryan Lee's Freedom Fest. We both spoke there, and this was 2015-ish, the fall of 2015. And we were talking about like masterminds and all this because he hosts masterminds. He goes to he's big into masterminds.
Yeah.
Me personally, I actually get very bored at masterminds. And the only way I'll go is if I'm speaking or training at one. It's not that I think the information's bad. The information's usually very good at the ones I've been to. I just don't have the attention span to sit there all day and be lectured about something. I mean, I just don't. Okay. I have all the energy to do the lecturing, but to be lectured is a whole other thing by itself. I mean, I'll go into full hardcore brainy Smurf mode when I'm lecturing. Okay. And to the point where people kick me out of the village, but I don't want to be the one being lectured to. But don't give away your power. So for example, Jonathan, let's say you went to a mastermind. Okay. And you're the podcast. You are the man at podcasting. For you to sit in the corner when the subject of podcasting comes up and not say anything because there's all these like really high level people in the room, you would be giving away your power to people who don't have your power, and you would be doing everyone in the room a disservice. And so don't give away your power. So whatever it is you're good at, you be the person at that and you speak up, and not just masterminds, but just in general when you're associating with people. Another thing, I think you should hang out with people who are looking out for you. Okay. And here's an example. When I first started doing daily emails, so we're talking late 2008, early 2009, and I was just starting to get, I was playing around with this whole way of doing email and all that. I started getting really like political. Now this is right when Obama got elected, so we had this like really political, landscape out there, and I couldn't stand the guy, and I couldn't stand seeing where things were going. And anyway, so I would sit there and I would do little political rants, and tie it into what I was selling, of course. But it became obvious that I was just letting this stuff get to me too much, to the point where this subscriber of mine, who's been a long-term email subscriber, I don't know if he listens to this podcast or not. His name's Ken Walden, and to this day I'll never forget. He's like, Ben, I really recommend you just turn off the news. It's toxic. Now, my first instinct was, oh, who's this guy to tell me? Then I thought about, I'm like, he's totally right. I mean, this guy is completely right. It was I was letting all this toxicity into my head, and it was showing, and it was obvious to people. And, he was looking out for me enough to tell me. And it actually, right when he said that, I did a news fast. I didn't look at any news for like I don't know, like a week or something. I felt 10 times better and more focused, and actually was writing better emails. Now I barely even ever watch news because it is toxic. And if you're going to watch it for their infotainment aspect, especially the major cable networks, because it ain't hard news. I don't care which network it is. It's not hard news. It's entertainment. It's infotainment. And you can watch it for that, but it's toxic. And if you go in knowing that, you'll hopefully not let it affect you. But anyway, try to hang with people who have your best interests at heart. That's what I'm trying to say. Another type of person to hang with, Jonathan, is people who are going to challenge you. So last fall, when I was speaking at Brian Kurtz's masterclass and at AWAI's bootcamp, copywriting bootcamp and job fair, I had the pleasure of meeting a very, very lovely copywriter named Marcella. And I believe she trains under the great Paris Lampropoulos. And we were at the mastermind there, and I was just kind of, I don't know, for some reason, I don't know if you guys know who Kim Schwalm is. I don't know. She's got like one of these hyphenated last names. So I don't know which one the real last name is, but she's one of the most brilliant copywriters out there. In fact, she's beating controls by like Jim Rutz and some of these like really high level, like best of the best copywriters. And for some reason, it was so easy to pick on her, Jonathan. I don't know why. I think it's because I could joke with her, like misogynist jokes and all that, and it would get her all worked up. But at the end of the day, she didn't take it seriously or anything like that, and we're just having fun. I just kept picking her, and I came up to her and I said, look, I really wish you would do a product, because there's a lot of girls in my audience and on my list and email player subscribers who are looking for someone like you who knows what you know. One of the top A-list copywriters on the planet today. Okay, Jonathan, her copywriting is even better than mine.
Whoa.
It's actually a lot of people's copywriting better than mine. But she it was something I think she'd been thinking about. She just didn't know really how to put it together. So I started talking to her about it and all this. And Marcella comes up and goes, you need to hang out. He told Kim, you need to hang out with Ben because he challenges you. Because I wasn't letting her get away with excuses or anything. I'm like, if you want to do this, you should do it. And we had some conversations about it. And I have subsequently helped her in a few different ways, get some ideas down there and hooked her up with Misty, the podcast babe, and Misty interviewed her for my audience and all that. And so, I just think that the copywriting world needs Kim's advice out there and like her expertise. She's one of the best of the best. So, but I was challenging her and I still challenge her. And I challenge her the way people will challenge me sometimes. There are people who challenge me who make me better at what I do. They don't let me get away with my own bull crap. And that's my whole point. You want to hang out with people like that. People who challenge you, not people who are like malicious about it, but people who genuinely just really want to help you and they're going to challenge you to get there. It's very important. And then finally, Jonathan, this might seem like common sense, but I think you should hang out with people who have what you want. There's no reason to be, I don't understand. People get jealous of people when they shouldn't be jealous of someone. If somebody has something you want, you should associate with that person and find out how they got it. So this can apply to anything. It can apply to your business life, your personal life, whatever. But if somebody has something you want, don't covet it. Don't sit there and get jealous about it. Try to find out how they got what it is you want. And that's all I got for today, Jonathan. I think we've already said way more than I know. Any parting thoughts before I tease what the next week's episode is going to be?
Tease on, brother.
I'm going to be talking about life coaching versus death coaching. And this ought to be an interesting for people who are life coaches. And so be it.
All right. So another BenSettle.com podcast is in the can. We'll be back at your earbuds next week.
You've been listening to the BenSettle.com podcast. To get your hands on a free issue of Ben Settle's prestigious $97 per month email player's newsletter, simply go to www.bensettle.com.
This is the podcastfactory.com.